Greetings, YouTube. Today I'm going to talk about bullying. There's currently a video working its way around the net showing the altercation between two students. I'm not going to link to it. It's gotten far more attention than it deserves, but I am going to use it as a reference. In it, a larger student is being tormented by a smaller student. Eventually, the larger student snaps. I imagine that this abuse had been systemic over time and not just a single event. He picks up the smaller student and throws him to the ground. I believe he broke the smaller student's ankle. Now this is shocking because it was filmed, of course, and shocking because things were allowed to escalate this badly. But one of the things that's bothered me the most is that communities that I would otherwise expect far more intelligent discourse have roundly supported the violent act of this student. Now, if you have to perform a violent act for self-defense, as in your life is threatened, or to save the life of an innocent, as you see someone being attacked, or your nation is attacked, and you get to perform self-defense on a national scale, I would justify violence. I will still not endorse it, but I would justify it. But there's never a time when you're being bullied where violence is the only option. And I think that that student's parents, that student's teachers, that student's school administration, and that student's society, our society, failed that student miserably. Because we allowed him to be in a situation where the only option he felt he had was to use physical force against someone else. He's a kid. He lacks the mental and emotional sophistication to make better judgments. So I don't hold him accountable for that. I hold accountable all the adults in his life that failed him miserably. But by the same token, that bully was failed miserably as well. Because being a bully is a coping mechanism. Yes, there are sociopaths in the world that do it just because they like it. But the vast majority of people who are bullies do it because they don't know how to deal with the world around them. They've got personal issues, and the only way they can handle it is by externalizing it. I've known self-harmers. I used to be married to one. Self-harming is not a desire to kill oneself. Self-harming is a coping mechanism. It isn't a very good coping mechanism, mind you. But if it keeps you alive long enough till you find a better one, it's better than nothing. Self-harming is internalizing your issues, and being a bully is externalizing them. Two sides of the same coin, and in both cases, people fail those that are using these damaged coping mechanisms. Now, I can't imagine that none of this was ever known to anyone else in that kid's community, either of them. The victim or the bully. Or it depends how you want to list victim here. Is the bully the victim at the end of this video? Or is the person that had been tormented the victim in this video? I'm not sure. But I do know that we, in Western culture, seem to just accept that children will be verbally and physically harassed and harmed by their fellow students as a rite of passage. It's just, happened when I was a kid, I lived through it. Except that's a twisted way of looking at things. I was abused as a child. Should I just ignore if I find out a child in my neighborhood's being abused? I was sexually abused. Should I just ignore if I find out if a child's been sexually abused? Of course not. And we shouldn't ignore if children are being bullied or if they are bullies. Something is wrong. And we need to step up and we need to do something about it. We don't just throw our hands in the air and walk away and say, oh, it's just kids. No, it doesn't work that way. Any of the adults watching this right now, in your place of work, would you tolerate being verbally or physically harassed at work? Of course not. You'd go to your boss or the human resource department, you'd get the person disciplined or fired, or you'd call the police. If somebody lays a hand on you, that's assault. If they harm you, that's assault and battery. Okay? Those are crimes. And that's how we have to look at bullying. Now, I don't want the bully thrown into jail, but I do want to put into counseling. I want to get inside his head, figure out what his issue is, and teach him how to handle it, how to find better coping mechanisms. It's a complex issue, but if we ignore it, it isn't ever going to get any better. So we have to stop ignoring it. We have to do something. We have to make sure that the world knows that there are times where zero tolerance is the best policy, and this is one of them. We cannot tolerate being bullied or bullies. Not some stupid PDA you see on television, you know what I mean? No, PSA, sorry, not PDA. But actual interactive intervention. Teachers, counselors, school administrators, parents, coaches, Boy Scout, Girl Scout leaders. Every adult in that kid's life has to be involved in this. Siblings, grandparents, everyone. If you're not up to that task, I question whether you're up to the task of being a parent. Because that's part of the job. This isn't Lord of the Flies, where we just throw them onto an island and hope they come out alive. We have to be there for them all the time. We have to help them when we can. And we can't just ignore them. And for any who are asking, why yes, I was in fact bullied as a kid. And yes, I didn't much like it. And yes, I did on more than one occasion turn to violence. Did it stop the particular event I was experiencing? Sure did. But all it did was move that bully onto another target. It didn't solve the problem. It just moved it someplace else. And that wasn't the way to deal with it. I didn't have the right coping mechanisms. These kids in this video don't have the right coping mechanisms. We failed them. And we need to stop doing that. We need to make sure that we do what we have to do to make sure our kids reach adulthood as healthy and whole human beings.